And welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Next Gen Jets. I am your host, Jack Cotter. Alongside me today, Josh Woolever. Josh, how you doing today?
Pretty good, Jack. Excited to be on for our first ever episode together and get started.
I'm good. Thanks, Josh, for joining me tonight. We'll be live every Friday for the expanding of Next Gen Jets here on Connor's channel. Every Friday it will be me and Josh around 9:30. Saturdays it'll be Connor and Chris. I think maybe around the same time. Maybe I'll have to double check with that. But Josh, happy to have you on tonight, and let's get right into the show. Right, first topic I want to talk about before we get into the big topic. Of tonight, which is obviously the title if the Jets should trade for Chris Olave. I want to go over something with you. What it was the Jets' overall grade in free agency, right? Because I feel like they made some pretty mediocre moves at best, right? I feel like a lot of people are pretty happy with that. They have mixed feelings on it, right? Me personally, I don't mind it really. I think we got worse in a little bit of a way. I want to hear your thoughts after my claim on this, but I think the Jets overall got a C. That was my grade this year. Justin Fields was a great signing. Obviously, you need your quarterback in the future. Many people say he was a bridge quarterback. I don't see it. I see him as the long-term deal. Well, we don't really know yet, right? That's my bad on that take right there. We don't really know yet, right? But excuse me, but if Fields proves everyone wrong, I think he will definitely be the franchise quarterback. But again, we have to see. But small signings like Tyler Johnson to be a wide receiver, which I don't even think he's a wide receiver 3. At best, he's a receiver 3, I would say. For me, he's a receiver 4. We still have Alan Lazard on the team. Don't know why. Of course, you need depth at a receiver position, but I just think Alan Lazard needs to be cut by probably within the next month or so, I would say. Maybe by draft day, he's gone. But, small names again, like Tyler Johnson. You got Brandon Stevens, which wasn't the best signing. Andre Cisco wasn't bad. I would like to see what the Jets do with him. Overall, that's just for me, right? I gave them a C. Connor, what do you have them as? Or not Connor, excuse me, Josh.
Well, Jack, excited to be on Fridays 9:30, our new time slot. Excited to be on here Next Gen Jets. So right off the rip, my grade, I gave them an overall B minus. You got your starting quarterback, but nothing else
Okay.
too exciting after that. Justin Fields, 2 years, $40 million. You said you see him as a long-term plan. I really don't. I mean, he's coming in with a lot of potential. The ceiling is high. It's sort of one of those low risk, high reward situations, right?
Right.
Like the worst you're getting out of Justin Fields isn't much worse than what we're expecting right now. Like we're expecting him to be an signs
Freezing
of
up a little
brilliance.
bit
He
there.
moves around the he moves
You're
sorry,
good.
sorry about that. Moves around the
No,
pocket
you're good. You're good.
like
Yeah.
natural. And I think he's a good enough signing for where the Jets are at. That's sort of
Mhm.
out with the old, in with the new. Get
Mhm.
new guys who are younger and cheaper in, save cap money for a better
Right.
future. Obviously, it had to be getting rid of Aaron Rodgers after
Right. Right.
a
That was the big talk
fiasco of
this
him
offseason.
walking out the door. But
Mhm.
other than that, you're right. Andre Cisco and Brandon Stevens, really the only other two big time notable free agent signings. I really didn't like the Stevens signing. I
And
think it
Stevens
was one
isn't
of
really
the
big time. I really
yeah
wanted Charvarius Ward. I,
yeah
I I really had my eyes set on Charvarius Ward. I don't know really why they didn't go after him. Yes, he may be a little bit more expensive, just a little bit more and a tad bit more expensive. But hey, I think if you could have went after Brandon Stevens, you could have either kept DJ Reed in the first place or B got Charvarius Ward, right? And back to the Justin Fields thing, right? Like you said, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And if it doesn't, hey, that was your bridge. Go after a quarterback 2026, maybe even 2027, right? Maybe we give him the full 2 years to see what he does. If he doesn't work out, go get a quarterback in the draft, right? I will not be mad at that. However, if he does well, I would like to see what the Jets go from here. And what do you? I know you mentioned you like the next two best picks we had in this free agency were Andre Cisco and Brandon Stevens. What do you think about Josh Myers coming to the Jets? Because I have mixed feelings on that. Right? Many people are saying move Joe Tittman to guard. I don't like it. I think Tittman did a solid job at center for the Jets last season, and maybe you just add depth to that. I would like to see what the Jets do at a right tackle position. I definitely think maybe if you draft Will Campbell out of LSU, maybe people are saying he can get moved to guard, and I would definitely
Armand
like to see
Membu.
that because we need more. Yeah, maybe even Armand Membu. That's who Daniel Jeremiah actually has in his latest mock draft, getting Armand Membu. I mean, I like the guy, but I'm not. I have mixed feelings on it. I don't like them going hit with him at 7. I really don't. But if let's say you go maybe later in the draft, you get a guy who's a good interior lineman, maybe even a tackle, move him inside to guard. I just don't see the need moving Tittman to guard. I don't. I like the idea of keeping Tittman at center, and because he's done a solid job. What do you think, Connor? Or not Connor, Josh?
Yeah, and we'll get into all that draft stuff in a little bit. But as for this free agent signings, you're signing Josh near $2 million. So there's really no risk into it. And adding depth at center is something that the Jets need. You saw what the offensive line has looked like in the past 2 seasons. Really, for a while
Right.
now, it's been if the first guy goes down, who's coming up after him? Luckily for the Jets last year, Olu was the saving grace because he
Yes,
came
of
in and
course.
did a heck of a job before getting injured.
Mhm,
But other than that, the Jets they lack some depth. So Josh Myers is going to come in here on an
mhm.
extremely cheap deal for $2 million.
Yes.
It's a sort
Yes.
of prove it year, 1 year, so you're not attached to him for long at all. And I like the signing, add a little bit of depth. While not paying the guy much, but for
Mhm.
Brandon Stevenson, right? Let's go back to that. You talked about how you didn't like him. You didn't like that
Yeah,
signing. I
I
really
wasn't a
don't
big fan.
either. Yeah, I really don't
Yeah.
either. I mean, obviously, he's not even close to the same ballpark as DJ Reed, but DJ Reed's only getting paid $4 million more per year by Detroit. Granted that DJ Reed probably
I thought we
didn't
just
want
could have
to.
kept him. You know?
Well, I granted I don't think he wanted to come back to the Jets
Right.
after
Yeah.
3 seasons in New York where the team didn't
Yeah.
make the playoffs. Obviously, it's been 15 seasons since the Jets have made the playoffs.
Right.
So there's a long
Yeah.
that's a long
Not
road
even
in
in our
hindsight.
lifetime.
Yeah, we've been on this ride a lot longer than DJ Reed has, but I don't blame him for walking to a place like Detroit. He gets a little bit more
Yeah.
money, sure, but
He wants to
as for
win.
the Jets, yeah, go ahead, Jack.
He wants to win. I sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry. I think
Yeah,
I'm
but
just a little bit
let's
delayed right now.
focus back in on the Jet scope of things. If you think about
Yeah.
how DJ Reed walked and he didn't want to stay with New York, Brandon Stevens, excuse me, is going to come in here as the replacement. Let's look over a little bit of the numbers. Allowed the 5th most receptions against wide receivers. He had
Yeah.
107.4 passer rating against, allowed
Mhm.
12.4 yards per receptions, and you're paying this guy
Yeah.
3 years, $36 million.
$36 million
That's
dollars is insane to
ridiculous.
me.
That's
Yeah, I think that's
ridiculous.
insane to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
And
can't, I would see if it was Charvarius Ward, but definitely not this Stevenson guy. Or not Stevenson, sorry, Stevens. I would not see that.
yeah, I think Charvarius Ward's going to cost you a little bit more money, but
Right. Yeah.
Brandon Stevens is not the guy you want to come in filling for DJ Reed opposite of Sauce Gardner, and especially because we
Yeah.
know how much zone the Jets play, it's going to be pretty
Mhm.
easy for opposing offenses to say, well, okay, if Sauce Gardner is going to line up on the left side all day long, then we're just going to
Right.
attack the right, attack the weakness of the Jets defense, and
Yeah.
if the Jets, try and scheme for Sauce Gardner to have to follow whatever team we're playing's wide receiver 1, follow him around the
Of
field, and
course.
he has to travel all the time. Number 1, that
Mhm.
you're not playing zone coverage anymore. Number 2, it's just going to become a disaster because when you go from a high level top tier duo at the cornerback spot and then you downgrade significantly and you have problems on the front right now with no depth
Mhm.
at the defensive line spot, now there's a lot of holes. You can attack in the receiving game, you can attack in the running game, and now the Jets defensively really become like a piece of Swiss cheese where they have pieces
Mhm.
in certain places, but in other places they're really weak, and that's where they're going to get exploited.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. There are a ton of gaps in this team right now. I definitely feel like Aaron Glenn can have the ability to fix them, whether it's through the draft, trades, free agency again, or even just signing a player. I think there's still a lot of gaps in this, like you said. And I think Aaron Glenn has the capability of fixing it, but maybe it won't be right away, right? Look at Glenn back in Detroit, right? They had so many holes on that team. He took the time. Him and Dan Campbell took the time
Yep.
to build that, right? The Lions defense was not the best back 4 years ago. Look at them now. Arguably a top 5 defense in the entire league right now, top 10, top 5 D in the entire league. And that was all from Glenn's building. And I really think I can trust in Glenn a lot and Steve Wilkes to build this defense, specifically the defense back up again. And even Tanner Enstrand, right?
Yeah, but we got some chats here coming in. Stevens isn't that bad. You're right. There's upsides
Yeah,
to him. The tape shows a lot of
of
he's
course.
coming down from the second level, knows how to blow up checks down, tackles well on bigger guys, and that's just from
Mhm.
5 minutes that I watched on tape. But there's other guys on the open market. You had Byron Murphy, you had Rasul Douglas. why are you
Mhm.
targeting Brandon Stevens? You had Charvarius
Yeah.
Ward, who we talked about a little bit. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
sure, he did well in 2023 when he was used properly. It was a big step down in the wrong direction last
Right.
season. I think his
Right.
passer rating went somewhere from the mid 80s all the way up to 107.4 passer rating against, that is. So
Right.
he really struggled last year.
Now, I've been seeing a lot of articles on this. Me personally, I'm not with it at all. I just want to get your opinion on this, Josh. Um, I've been seeing a lot of articles saying Elijah Moore is linked to go back to the Jets. I'm not buying it one bit. I mean, I get the Jets need receiver depth. What are your thoughts on this? Because I thought I would just, put this in my notes, just maybe just a little thing to just talk about for a second, because I really wanted to get this off my chest with you. And I don't agree with it one bit. I don't agree with really anyone that says that. I don't think Moore even wants to come back to the Jets based off the toxic relationship that we had with Elijah Moore. And I just want to get your thoughts on that. For me personally, I don't see it ever happening again.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Jets brought him in as what, a second round draft pick, and they refused to
Yeah,
throw him the football. So,
yeah,
I mean, it doesn't really add up to him being pumped to get back here. I get it, that's a new regime, new whatever, new front
yeah,
office. I mean, that can only do so much for you.
right.
If he is linked to the Jets, you're right. I'm with you here. I don't see it. I mean, we
Hmm.
talked about cutting Alan Lazard. There's a whole lot of problems at the receiving position outside of Garrett Wilson. I don't think Elijah Moore getting brought back is the correct answer to all that. Um, you've got some picks to attack within the draft. Obviously, I mean, there's
Hmm.
no real true wide receiver that you would think about taking at 7, or at least not that I would take at 7. But I just don't think that. I mean, why would he even want to come back? What? Doesn't he
Right.
hate this place?
Yeah. Again, thank you, Jet Up, for the nice comments. What about Robbie Anderson?
Good point.
That's interesting, right? Because Anderson has shown, well, now Robbie Chosen, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but he's changed his name so many times, it's insane. But anyway, back to what I was saying, right? I think he still has some upside. He's getting a little old for a receiver drafted back 2016, I believe, by the Jets. Obviously it didn't end on good terms for him. I know I've seen some articles and stories that he's interested in coming back to the Jets. I mean, I'm not 100% denying it, right? We need depth, we're kind of almost desperate right now. This gap between Malachi Corley and Garrett Wilson is too much for the Jets to handle right now for and coming this season, right? I definitely feel like if you want to get field some help, Robbie Anderson's not a terrible decision. I just feel like there's more out there, like possibly getting a Ted McMillan in the draft, maybe an Isaiah Bond in the draft, a Matt Golden in the draft, a Mecca. There's so many other options, right? Again, I'm not counting him out. I'm just saying, it's not really the best case scenario in my case. And even if he comes back, I think it's really only 1-2 years that he's
Jack.
only here, right?
Jack, he's gonna turn 32
Yeah,
this season. He's gonna turn 32 in a month. He caught one pass for 5 yards last season.
yeah,
Why
yeah.
would you want him back?
I mean,
Why?
I'm
I
not
mean,
saying I did. That's why I said I'm not 100% denying it, right? We need a little bit of depth, but it's not really, like I said, you have so many other options, right? I
yeah.
would take any of those draftmen over him any day, I would say. That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, 9-year-old me watching Robbie Anderson run for 80-yard touchdowns. It was about the glory days of my Jet watching
If
days.
it was
Um,
2018, 2019,
oh,
then
for
yes,
sure.
keep him.
Yeah,
Keep
pay
him.
him a bag. Yeah.
Yeah, pay him a bag.
All right. Let's get. I think Justin
What's up,
Fields the
Chris?
future of this franchise. Thoughts.
I agree.
Jack.
I agree. Well, we don't know yet, right? We don't know yet. He hasn't stepped one foot in a Jets uniform. He hasn't even stepped one foot in MetLife Stadium as his home turf yet, right? We need to see, and we can't even really judge him past, I would say, the first half of the season. Wait till at least the second half. I would say week 10, week 11-ish. Then you could really start to put the puzzle pieces together, right? Because again, he's always had some complications with himself. And if the Jets address those. Of course, I think he's going to get better under Tanner Angstrom and Aaron Glenn. However, I don't expect him to be 100%. Like in terms of skill, right? I don't expect that. I don't expect him to be in like an MVP caliber quarterback. Oh, this guy's going to lead the Jets to, let's say, 11-6 this year. I don't see I just
No.
don't see it, right? Like I said, they're going to go 7-10 at best this year, and don't be surprised if Justin Fields makes some mistakes. Of course, he's bound to make some mistakes. Every single player makes mistakes. Hell, even Tom Brady makes some mistakes, and when he's in crucial situations, not always, but he has made mistakes before. Don't expect Justin Fields to be any different, right? Now, I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady anyway. I'm just saying every single player makes mistakes, especially if they've I've had a history of struggling with mistakes,
Well,
and I just don't expect what I'm trying to say is don't expect Justin Fields to be this perfect quarterback. Yes, he could be the long term answer if eventually he works out. I'm just saying don't judge him immediately, right? Wait some time. If
for
no, then yes, get rid of him. Draft a quarterback, right? Josh, what are your thoughts on this? That's my overall take.
yeah, for sure. But I'm realistically, I mean, obviously, I think you're right in everything that you just said there. He has a chance to be. Obviously, since we haven't seen him yet, we don't know what he'll do in a Jet uniform. But let's be realistic here, and not be overly optimistic Jet fans. Although it seems like we did that every offseason. But let's think here. What is a realistic ceiling for Justin Fields? I mean, like, do we think this team could actually legitimately win more than 8 games? I'm saying no. I'm just gonna straight up say no. There's way too
Yeah,
many
I'm
holes in
saying
this
no.
roster.
I'm
Okay,
saying no. I'm gonna say the ceiling is like
so then
8 and 9 or 7-10, the best. The
yeah,
best.
and I think 6 or 5 wins is much more realistic. Just from what I'm looking at. Obviously, we haven't seen the draft yet. We don't know who they'll get, so there's a lot of time for that number to go up. But right now, this is looking like a 5-win team to me. But
Yeah.
okay, so we got that out of the way. We think the ceiling is 8 wins this year.
Yeah.
Now, just a question for you, and I think this is what's on a lot of Jet fans' minds. This year is not the year. Year is not the year where we have Super Bowl expectations. But
No.
it's in 2 years when he hits his contract here, and it's in 3 years when the Jets have to decide if they're going to pay him or not. Do you
Right.
actually think that he will prove enough by then to get a big time payday?
Well, like I said again, he hasn't stepped one foot on the hopes for him. If he does, give him that bag. Give him that bag all day long. I have really good confidence in him. I think he'll do great things for us. That's just my opinion, right? It's something new. The thing about I like him is something new, right? We haven't had a mobile quarterback in maybe. Would you count Tim Tebow as really a mobile quarterback? I
No.
mean, yeah, not really. So, I mean, kind of, yes, but he wasn't not Justin Fields, right? Justin Fields led the NFL. He has the most rushing yards in an NFL quarterback in NFL history, right? Over around 1,100 yards in just one season. That's more than Brees Hall has ever had, right? I feel like it's something new, right? So I'm really excited to see what they do. I think he'll do great things for us. I would say give him that bag if he, proves that he can be the long-term answer for the Jets.
All right, and I think that is a pretty good case. We have a chat here. Jet up. Jaden Higgins is my favorite wide receiver in this draft class. Again, we'll get to the
That's
draft
not bad.
stuff a little bit later, but let's talk about one last free agent here first, and that's
That's not a bad
Andre
take.
Cisco, safety,
Mhm.
formerly with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think it was a decent move. He's about middle of the pack as a safety last year. Played well against the run. 8 interceptions in his 4 years. 1 year, $10 million. So again, cheap. In with the new kids. Got to get the
Again,
young
low
guys
risk,
in,
high
old
reward.
guys out, and
Mhm.
he's only 24 years old. 4 years in the league. He's a ball hawk kind of guy, and he's played enough to the point where we know kind of what to expect. I mean, pretty much whatever the Jets are going to go out here and get is going to be better than what Chuck Clark did last year. But just your initial thoughts on this
Yeah.
Andre Cisco deal.
I mean, I don't mind it, right? Of course, because we need a lot of depth in this safety position, right? I feel like we're really low right now. If we before we sign Andre Cisco, even now, I still think Tony Adams is our best safety on our roster. Adams has proved a lot last year and the year before, especially 2023. Man, that 2023 season by Tony Adams, I think, was special in my opinion. I really think he proved himself there. I still think Adams is the best safety on our roster right now. Maybe Andre Cisco can change my mind. Again, I'm really open. I'm really open to seeing what he could do. And I definitely think he could do some great things for us if properly coached. We've definitely see how he's played. Again, he's a good player. Every player that makes it to the NFL is a accountable football player. If you really think about it, they're all professionals, right? But he's not on the certain level as a lot of safeties. That's my issue, right? I feel like if you get him there, sure. Right, I'll accept him into the Jet team, into the Jet community as a good player, right? But he's got to work at it first because we've definitely seen some flaws in him that he definitely has to improve on. But I agree. I'm excited. Again, I want to address this super chat really quick. Jaden Higgins is my favorite wide receiver in this draft class. That's not a bad take, right? That's really not a bad take at all. I definitely think there's some upside to Higgins. I don't think really he's a near. I don't think he's really the best receiver. He's definitely good, right? But I don't. Yes, right. I would say my top three are Travis Hunter if he goes in as a receiver, Tet McMillan. You got Emeka Egbuka, Matt Golden, Isaiah Bond. You got all those guys, right? I definitely feel like Jaden Higgins is great. I just think he's not even in my top three. I would say top three, top four. I would say he's not even in that. So he's good, but he's nowhere near the level, in my opinion, of a Ted McMillan or a Travis Hunter.
Yeah,
That's just
and
my
if you
opinion.
could, and if you could go one and done in college, Ryan Williams would certainly be on that list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see what he could do with Alabama in
Oh
his
yeah,
career.
for sure. All right, well, let's move on out of the free agent. One more chat here actually before Dante Thornton is interesting in the draft. Yeah, no, I think so, and we'll get to the draft in a little bit. But do we want to go Olave here, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about Olave as well, really fast. I'm glad you brought this up, really, Josh. I think the big question is, should the Jets trade for Chris Olave? And simple answer is yes. Right. I think you need depth in this receiver room. He may cost a little bit, right? But I think it's totally worth it, right? Link these Ohio State Buckeyes back up together, and that's not my only reason, right? I really don't like how I've seen some people's only takes are, oh, they played at Ohio State together. That means they're going to be the same in the NFL, right? That's not always the case, right? The NFL is a totally different game than college football, especially if you're at the top in college football. Then it's probably like easy cake, right? In terms of if you're the best of the best in college football. We don't know how they've been. We haven't even seen Justin Fields complete a pass to Garrett Wilson yet. How do we know he's going to be good with Chris Olave? Yes, they had chemistry in college, but we just have to wait and see. But I'm still open to it. I think Chris Olave, my take is that's not why I'm trading for him. I'm not trading for him because he was, had chemistry with Justin Fields in college. That's part of it. Yes. Of course, that you have to include that in there. It's not like he's never thrown a touchdown to him before. But what I'm really looking at, I like his play skill. I think he's very athletic. I think he has good hands, right? But the only issue with him, right, I think he's very, very injury prone, in my opinion. He had if the Jets were to trade for Olave, his trade value would probably be a third round pick due to his injury history. He's had two concussions. He had two concussions in 4 weeks last year, and he missed the entire second half of the NFL season. So I'm not trading more than a third round pick, for Chris Olave. Josh, what are your thoughts on Chris Olave possibly getting traded to the New York Jets?
Yeah, well, to try and bring back the old Ohio State trio, Fields, Wilson, Olave, and it's really 5 when you account for Josh Myers and Jeremy Rutgert. And I think
Yep.
you're right. If giving up a third round pick was all you had to get for Chris Olave, then absolutely go out there and get him. But to me, that's just the baseline of it because he's got one more year before the Saints would have a chance to pick up his 5th-year option. So he's entering the 4th year. And the problem is,
Right.
New Orleans would be asking for a lot just for 1 year of him, right? So, like a third round pick, they might even want a little bit more for him. After
Yeah.
which, you would have to give him Garrett Wilson type money. And as much as I'd like to see it, I just don't think trading for him would be worth it because paying 2 wide receivers that much money presents a lot of challenges. The Cincinnati Bengals are about to go through it. Let's see how they do. I have no clue how they're going to handle the cap paying Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But if it was only the fact that trading for Chris Olave, if that was the only hurdle, absolutely go get him. Team up that Ohio State trio and get that next wide receiver in your door. Really get a lethal threat of Justin Fields on either side
Right.
of him. But the problem is you can trade for him and do all this year, but we've already discussed that the ceiling is an 8-win year. Chris Olave can't add that much to a team that isn't trying to win. And then you're going to have to pay him this much money, right? So at that point, I'd
Right.
wait. If you really want him, I'd wait and sign him in free agency because what is getting him this year going to do? And really, I'm not sure that even after you trade for him, he's going to be worth how much money him and his agent are going to be asking for.
Right. So if you're not on the board with trading for Olave, right? Do you get a receiver in the draft? Like who's your guy to be filling the role of wide receiver 2 for the Jets? If it's
I
not
don't know.
Olave.
Yeah, and that's a tough question because at 7, I'm looking at 3 guys and none of them are wide receivers. I mean, I guess Tyler Warren.
Really?
Tyler Warren
You don't
can
have Ted
basically
McMillan at
play
7?
anywhere. I mean, I'll give you my list of 3 guys right there if they're here at 7 if you want to
All right.
jump ahead to the draft a little early. But I have Membu, Graham, and Warren. Granted, probably
Okay.
1 or 2 of those guys won't be there at 7, but those are my top 3 for who to pick at 7.
That's not a bad pick, or that's not a bad take. For me, I have the Jets either getting Tyler Warren or Ted McMillan. Really, I just have those 2. I wouldn't be surprised if they go after a lineman. Again, Sharon
Looking
McLean
at
comes
Dante
into
Thorne
a
on
super
this
chat.
chat saying.
Dante Thorne is interested in the draft. I haven't really done much research on him. I have to do a little bit more on him. I've heard good things about him. However, I would just have to do a bit more research on him. And I'm interested to see what he can do. Definitely. I'll have
Yeah.
to research on him more, but I've heard good things about him. So
Yeah, I mean, he's big, 6'5", 205, but he can also run 4.3, 40-yard dash at the combine, and he has great hands
right.
as well out of Tennessee. Andrew Armstrong is a dark horse wide receiver. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of good names.
Mhm.
It doesn't. Here's the thing: it doesn't have to be a first round guy this year. I mean, there's a lot of talent at the wide receiver spot in this draft. I mean, even if you're going into the draft with Garrett Wilson as your number one and you don't have a bona fide plan for number two, I mean, I think there's still some good options there on day two.
Right. I totally agree. Right. And even in round three, like you said, day two, for round three, Isaiah Bond. That is I would say that
Mm.
he's the epitome of a round three wide receiver that the Jets can go after. I'm really high on Isaiah Bond. I really love his speed, his agility, his athleticism in general. Watching him at Texas really was almost like a dream come true, right? Him and Matt Golden were a perfect duo together with Quinn Ewers throwing him the ball. I just think, Bond is a perfect, steal per se. If in the third round, if we decide to go wide receiver in the third, if Isaiah Bond is there, take him second or third round. I don't mind I don't mind Isaiah Bond coming to the New York Jets one bit. But now,
And
Josh, I
then,
want to go out. Go.
well,
You can
well,
continue.
I
What's
just
up?
wanted to respond to this chat right here for Jimmy Jets.
Mhm.
Talking about how Andrew Armstrong is a dark horse wide receiver. And I think you're right. Led the SEC in receptions with 78. Led the SEC in yards over 1,140 and over 100 receiving yards a game, right? So he did a lot at Arkansas. The question is, will it be able to translate to the next level? That's the question that's the
Right.
question with all these guys. That's why they do the draft. But if you go non wide receiver at 7, would you think about possibly giving up a little bit, trade into that late first round window if there are a couple guys you like on the board there still?
I'm open to it, right? Let's say if Kelvin Banks is there still, or a guy like Will Campbell, I'd be interested in trading down, possibly to move them to the interior offensive line, because I definitely feel like we need to fill some holes in that, like a guard position. I definitely feel like moving a guy like Campbell to guard, I definitely feel like would help our situation a lot, and that's something I wouldn't deny, or that's something I wouldn't, count out, right? But it's not my first option, right? I think the Jets have to go after a playmaker in this draft, like a not playmaker, excuse me, that's the wrong word. Skill player was the right word, and whether that be Tyler Warren, Ted McMillan, Matt Golden, wherever you can go. That's just my personal preference. I think Fields needs help, and not only in the pass game, right? Tyler Warren in the run game, he's an excellent blocker, right? If you get
Yeah.
Warren, that's like a 2-in-1 package, right? If you
Yeah,
get Warren,
absolutely.
his form is awesome when blocking. He can even throw. That's like almost a 3-in-1 package. Get an offensive package with Tyler Warren, right? Josh, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that play like a few years ago when I think it was Derrick Henry who acted
Yeah.
like was like a
Flipped it over
wildcat?
the line.
Yeah, flipped it over the line right there. Maybe that's not the exact play that they could do
Yeah.
with Warren.
I know it is.
Definitely
2-point
second
conversion.
round package. Yeah, second round of package. Maybe run a little Philly special right there with them.
Yeah,
You
there's a
know,
lot you could do with them. There's basically no end. I mean, it's a play caller's dream to have a guy like Tyler Warren. I mean, almost like a
yeah,
Debo Samuel in his heydays.
mhm,
I won't say he's out of his heydays, but where you could hand it off to him, throw it long to him, give him a wide
mhm,
receiver screen. I mean, you could do literally anything with that guy. But one more
yeah,
guy I want to bring up while we're on the topic of wide receivers, Luther Burden out of Missouri, right? Like big
yeah,
time speed demon, has that dynamic playmaking making abilities, has the hands. Uh, you know, he's I mean, obviously that it's not someone you would take at 7 because that'd be way too
yeah,
big of a
yeah,
reach, but like there's guy. My point is that there's guys late first round. You don't need to go wide receiver at 7. There's so many better places you can go. Uh,
yeah,
there's so many better things you can do with it. You can go Armand Membu, bulk up that offensive line, tackle out of Missouri at 7. Right. I think investing in the offensive line is an extremely smart move, especially when the expectation isn't so high this year. Right. Because when you took Olu Fashanu last year, yeah, you got a good piece in the offensive line, even though he wasn't a week 1 starter. But you gave up a playmaking position role. that you could have bulked up there at you had 10, then you ended up trading back to 11. You could get Mason Graham because again,
Mhm.
besides Quinnen Williams, there's nobody there, defensive tackle. He'd be
Right.
extremely hard to resist. You mentioned it, form, power, technique. He does just about everything right. And then Tyler Warren, 8 receiving touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, close to 1,500 all-purpose yards. I mean, going with any of those three
Right.
guys, it seems like you can't mess up in my eyes at 7.
Yeah, you can't, and if the Jets do, it's the Jets. What else there to expect, right? It's the Jets, but hey, I don't expect them to mess up this year. I really think Glenn and Engstrand, Muji, Wilkes, all of those guys are really prioritizing and to being smart in their picks this year, right? And you got to get some, maybe even get some guys on the defensive side of the ball, right? Consider, like you said, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, even maybe. I don't see it though. That's just a name that popped up into my head. I think he's a solid DB for Michigan, right? And now speaking of
Yeah.
DBs, right? I want to go over something with you heading into our next talking point here. How would you evaluate and spread out Brandon Stevens' cap numbers, right? Because for me, the Jets can either do this by considering his base salary, his signing bonus, or any per game bonuses, along with the potential for void years, like if we cut him, he gets dead cap, right? So how would you evaluate it? I think if you spread it over the course of a couple of years, which seems like the Jets are doing, he's going $4 million this year.
Yep.
Next year he's going $14 million. How would you evaluate his cap space right now, or in the near future at least?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, the hit isn't going to be that much this year. It's only going to be 4 million against the cap, and they did kind of a smart thing with the signing bonus. They spread it out 2 million per year over the next 5 years. So even when he's long gone after the team, we're going to be paying him a couple big bills to the bank for him. But since this year he'll only cost the Jets 4 million against the cap, and then in 2027, after 2026, 14 million guaranteed. 2027, he has 11.5 million on the base salary, but none of that is guaranteed.
Right.
So the only thing they'll owe him at that point is the bonus money. So really, what you're thinking about here is that the Jets. It's a 3-year deal, but they really only have to keep him for 2. And
Right.
unless he turns something around, I don't know why they would keep him for the 3rd, right?
I agree. Yeah. And speaking of keeping guys, right? A couple of other names I want to get. Great points, by the way, Josh. Love having you on here. Again, make sure to smash the like button, comments, super chats, call into the show. Again, make sure to just hit that like button. Makes the channel grow, makes the show grow. Free way to support the channel. Again, thank you all for the support on tonight's great show. Again, I'm Jack Cotter. And that's Josh Woolever hosting your Next Gen show tonight here on Fridays, every Fridays. Chris Grosso comes in. What's up, Chris? Why only 7 wins, Jack? Well, here's the thing, right? I think the Jets ultimately got worse this offseason. Besides the Justin Fields signing, I don't see any key players that they got that are any better, right? And that I'm not saying I think that's their ceiling. Realistically, they're going 6-11 this season. That's what I think. I think the Jets are going 6-11 this season. I can pull up their schedule right now. Actually, here, let me.
I mean, it is a
pull up.
pretty easy schedule. I'll tell you that much. It is a. I mean,
Well, let's see here.
there are a couple games that.
Let's see. For me, the 2025 games, right? You have home, Buffalo, Miami, New England. I'm going to say we get swept by Buffalo this year. That's 0-2.
Yeah,
Split with Miami, I'm going to say.
split
And
with
then
the
split with
Patriots.
New England. So then let's see. That's 0-2. Lost to the Bills. 1 win against the Dolphins, 1-2. 1 loss against the Dolphins, 1-3. 1 win against the Patriots, 2-3. So you're at 2-4 right now. Now let's head into the games, right? You have the Steelers, that's 2-5. At least I think right now, if they figure out their quarterback situation, then that's 2-5. If they don't, that's possible 3-4. But I'm gonna go to 2-5 right here. Cleveland, I'm gonna say we win that game 3-5. Denver, that's 3-6. Dallas, that's 3-7. Atlanta, that's 4-7. I'm gonna say maybe we pull a little bit of an upset. Carolina, that's 5-7. I'm gonna say Buffalo, or we already went over that. Baltimore, that's 5-8. Cincinnati, that's 5-9. Jacksonville, that's 6-9. Tampa Bay, that's 6-10. New Orleans, 6-11, 7-10. You can go either way. That's just what I think. I don't think the Jets are gonna shock some people like they think this year.
Jets will beat
And
the
I just,
Steelers. Steelers.
you
They
think
don't even have
so?
a
You think so?
quarterback. I mean,
I'm just saying if
unless
they
they
solved it,
fix
they solved it.
something.
If they solved it. Jack, they have
Yeah,
so much better coaching and pillars on this team. We don't know
that's
yet, though.
true.
We don't know that yet. Of course, Glenn was a great defensive coordinator. So was Saleh. Saleh ended up being a mediocre head coach. I would say he was good only really in the first half of 2022. He didn't really have a plan for Aaron Rodgers getting injured against Zach Wilson. I feel like that's a little bit on him as the coach and the GM, both of them. I can see why both really can take the blame for that. But again, Saleh wasn't the worst coach in the world, right? I think he was definitely better than Adam Gase by far. Definitely better than Todd Bowles. I think.
Adam Gase.
I think he was better than Todd Bowles in his last a few years with the Jets. But ultimately, it came down to, was he better at head coach or defensive coordinator? The answer to that was defensive coordinator. Ultimately, it could be the same with Aaron Glenn. We don't know yet. Hopefully, that's not the case. I really like Aaron Glenn's attitude, so I have more hope in him being a great head coach. However, we don't know yet, right? We don't know if there's good coaching on this team yet. I think there's good, upside to these coaches. I just don't, I don't see us going past 7 wins with this new regime, at least this year.
I mean, you tell me what, because is it only recency bias, or it feels like, I mean, at least at the opening press conferences, the coaches seemed a lot more motivated than they did last year. I think this coaching staff is way improved.
Yeah.
I think they did just about everything right in the hiring process. I don't see them going wrong anywhere here.
Yeah.
I mean, you brought in a totally new regime. There's new coordinators everywhere you look, new head coach, new general manager. So it's a complete wipe of the board. It's in a complete, you erase everything you had. And I think that's what you had to do. And I think that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah. Joe Grana comes in. Membu at 7. Harmon, Grant, Nolan at 42. Ferguson tight end at 73. Horton wide receiver in the 4th. The thing about Membu at 7, right? I like how people are hyping him up. I think he's good. A good old lineman for Missouri. I just don't think the Jets take him at 7. I think we have other needs right now. Maybe if you trade back in the draft to the late first round, early second round, you take an offensive lineman, put it in the interior line. I don't see Membu getting taken at 7 though. And the rest of the picks, that's fine, I guess. But second round, I really see the Jets maybe going after a lineman, maybe even a tight end. If they don't pick, let's say don't pick Warren in the first, maybe they go after Colson Loveland or Elijah Arroyo in the second. Third round, Ferguson at tight end. Again, that's not bad. Again, if they don't pick a tight end in the first, maybe you also need some tight end depth in there, because I don't see Ruckert really as the true tight end too.
Yeah.
People can think whatever they want. I don't see it. So maybe even getting 2. I wouldn't mind Ferguson at 73. I have Isaiah Bond at 73. And then Tony Horton, I don't mind that at all. I think that's pretty good. That's solid in my opinion.
All right, well, let's move on to 2 guys that are already on the Jets. And that is Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. What is a realistic price range for them? When would you want to re-sign one or both of them? Or maybe even neither of them? Jack, take it away.
You got to get them as soon as possible. You cannot wait till tomorrow, right? The price goes by, the price of these guys go up every single day by the penny, right? You have to get them right away. I would say for Garrett Wilson, this could be, everyone has their own opinions, but I think this one's pretty realistic. You pay Garrett Wilson $24 million a year, right? Annually. I think maybe he could sign a 3-year, $63 to $66 million deal with the Jets will be good. Maybe a 5-year around maybe $100 million or something around that. He's proven the reason for this, right? Because he's proven himself as a true wide receiver 1 for this team, and he could definitely and he's definitely someone the Jets want to keep around for a while. And I see the Jets doing that. I don't know why they're waiting on it. Excuse me for talking a little bit out of hand here, but I don't know why they're not doing it. Right? I don't get it why they're holding off a lot. Yes, they have a couple other things they need to worry about, but I feel like Wilson and Gardner are arguably your 2 best players on this entire team, right? And I feel like you need to prioritize them and the future of this team over a lot of other things. And I feel like they should pay them as soon as possible. Josh, what do you think on Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, well, they're both approaching their 4th season's 5th-year option 2026. And I agree with you. If I'm the Jets, I'm getting this done as soon as possible. We've seen enough from both of these guys to say that they were huge draft hits. Both have publicly said they want to stay with the Jets. Now, I don't know if that's a lie or if they're just saying that so that the media
I think it's true.
rubs them the right way. But, I mean, yeah, Sauce Gardner says it a lot. So if he was lying, then he'd really be selling it.
Right.
You look up and down his Twitter. He says a lot that he wants to stay with the Jets. But and even if they don't think that, I think this new coaching staff has a chance to change any doubts they might have had. But for sure, they got to do it before they hit the open market. If it's not this offseason, it has to be next offseason at the latest. The longer you wait, the more money they cost in the future.
Exactly.
Now, they both continue to play. at high levels, the whole league's going to want him, right? So,
Right. Yep.
yeah, I agree with what you said because Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner are basically approaching their primes right now, and by the
Yep.
time you sign them, and by the time they're at the end of their contracts, they'll be on that decline. But for what they've shown you already, for how big they are, they're homegrown kids. You
Mhm.
got to keep them in the organization. I mean,
I
it would
agree.
just look foolish if you let them walk, especially because of all the cheap moves you're making this offseason.
Hmm.
What else would you be saving
Right.
your room for? What
Right.
else would you possibly be saving your room for? You hit at Garrett Wilson on
Yeah.
10. You hit even more on Sauce Gardner at 4. Homegrown kids,
Mhm.
you have to re-sign them. And I think that's why they're making all these little small moves. And
Mhm.
they're both still in their mid-20s. They're not too old
Mhm.
quite yet. For Sauce,
Yeah.
it's probably going to be, 4 or 5 years, which is like sort of the sweet spot for those
Maybe
guys
even
in their
six.
primes.
Maybe even six. Maybe
Yeah,
even
well, I
six.
mean, I don't know. And upwards of $20 million because that's for sure. Pat Surtain just reset the cornerback market. He just got 4 years, $96 million out there in Denver. And those are
Yeah.
arguably the two best corners in the league. So Sauce Gardner's
Right.
not going to be asking for anything less than that. And then value wise for Garrett Wilson, he'll probably get similar to Sauce.
Yeah.
Around probably another 4 years for him. But
Yeah.
you got to do it. You know what? It doesn't feel like they're going to do it this offseason to me. It feels like they're going to
Really.
go into next offseason, exercise the option, and then start talking on the deals.
Hmm.
I just feels like, do you think that the new general manager is going to come in here and start re-signing everybody and making all these power moves immediately?
Maybe not everybody, right? But you, like I said, they just re-signed Jamie Sherwood. I think they're on the path to
Yeah,
re-signing
that was a good
Gardner
move.
and or extending. Excuse me. I think extending Gardner and Wilson. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, but still got to trust the process. Again, Muji, he has a lot of different things he can get focused on. Except, my opinion, you have to be focused on your future of this organization first, right? And I think just get him paid as much as you can, and then get Sauce Gardner paid. And speaking of Sauce Gardner getting paid, right? A lot of people are saying, maybe you don't pay him, right? Maybe you do wait for next season. I think you, especially with this cornerback market, like you said, Pat Surtain signing a 4-year, $96 million deal with the Broncos. You got Derek Stingley signing a 3-year, $90 million deal. J.C. Horn just signed a really big deal. It's
Yep.
not going to take long till their price goes up, and you got to pay Gardner right away, right? A lot of people, maybe people are wondering, hey, Gardner had a down season last year. Don't pay him. I don't agree. Yes, Gardner maybe didn't meet to his standards. Again, keyword his standards, right? But he was arguably still a top 10 cornerback last season. He's
Way
proven
higher.
himself big time. You know, a two-time All-Pro, just his first 2 seasons in the NFL. Arguably his rookie season was probably his rookie season and his second season, excuse me, were definitely his best. 2024, again, like we said, it wasn't his standard, but definitely still a top 10, maybe even higher cornerback in the entire league. That's where I'm. That's where I'm. That's what I. That's what I think.
Yeah, all these guys getting record breaking deals. I mean, it's only right that these guys are going to get their paydays. It's got
Yeah.
to come sooner or later. But we've also seen teams reach way too far. Bears did it with DJ Moore
Mhm.
last offseason, gave him 4 years, 110. I mean, I mean, what a joke that was. And then we also see guys like Devontae Smith just won the Super Bowl. He got rewarded with a big time payday.
Right.
I think it was
Yeah.
3 years, 75 million. So it could go either way. But if you could only re-sign one, and before I
Mhm.
get there, I think one of the reasons why they're not eager to jump on it right this current second is obviously because the
Mhm.
cap goes up every year. So they're
Right.
trying to work with the cap right now and milk out their rookie contracts as long as they can, and
Right.
then after that, once they get more cap, it's probably going to go up another $30 million next offseason. So
Right.
that's that. But if you could only re-sign one, just a hypothetical, Garrett or Sauce, who you got?
I think both. Really, I can't pick one. If I was to
You
pick
got
one,
to
though,
pick one.
probably I can't. I really can't. Because I think the really key aspects of this team, I'm gonna have to go with both of them, right? But anyway, I'm gonna go into my final thoughts here before we wrap things up. Again, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. A free way to help us out. Next Gen Jets with me and Josh. We'll be back on here Friday next week. Josh, what are your final thoughts on tonight? Thank you so much for coming on, and you made some very valid points tonight. You're a great guest on the show. You actually co-host now for Friday's edition of Next Gen Jets. Josh, what are your final thoughts on tonight? It was great having you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Can't wait to do this every Friday night. getting a
Nope.
little rhythm here every Friday at 9:30. Final thought is that you can't go no quarterbacks within the first 2 days.
Okay.
If you're gonna reach, you definitely can't reach for Jackson Dart. If you really want, you can maybe get someone Kyle McCord. I don't know, Dylan Gabriel. Uh,
I don't
don't
see
get
Gabriel
Jalen
though,
Milroe,
but
please. But if for any reason on God's green earth they somehow like Jalen Milroe or any of those other two guys, it's got to be fourth round or later. That's the bar,
yeah,
preferably later. That's all I got, Jack. Thanks for having me on. Great host, and
no
yeah,
problem.
great episode.
Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to tonight's edition on this Friday edition on this weekly episodic program. We go around all weekend long. Next Gen Jets weekend. Fridays at 9:30. It's me and Josh Woolever. Saturdays it is Connor Long and Chris Grasso. Sundays it is me. The three me, Connor, and Chris on Sundays at 7. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in to this live stream. Make sure to hit that like button if you are new or a returning viewer. Make sure to subscribe. Helps keep the channel growing. Again, JETS, Jets, and we will see you all next Friday. Me and Josh Woolever.